he breaks down plays better than anyone.
I mean, this is like Shark Week now. And you know what Baker Mayfield is? He's chum. Look at these sharks. You think you're getting away from those four angry sharks? It's Shark Week. It's time to eat. Make the read. Urgency. That's the name of the game right here. Urgency. Now, on it. He's on it. Touchdown. Beautiful throw.
He's our 95.7 The Game NFL insider, Brian Baldinger.
That's right. Brian Baldinger is presented by our proud partner, Golden State, serving the Bay Area for 3 generations. Building better starts with Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit goldenstatelumber.com. Joe Spadoni in for Bonta Hill alongside Joe Shasky. Brian Baldinger, you know him, you love him. He was calling the game for the Niners and the Seahawks on Sunday. And Baldy, you were out in Miami yesterday for that debacle of a fourth quarter between the Titans and Dolphins?
I was, Joe. Good morning, Joe and Joe. Yeah, I was out here. I took the red eye out of San Francisco and was at Levi Stadium till late. Caught the red eye and then did a little studying and then headed over to Hard Rock Stadium and watched that fiasco last night. But, I mean, we need good young quarterback, and Will Levis looks like he's pretty promising right now.
Absolutely. No, Will Levis, for all the weird talk pre-draft about the mayonnaise and the coffee and how he acts with people, he was a first-round talent, and you saw why yesterday. The guy's big and he's strong. He's got a cannon of an arm, too. Baldy, you were there on Sunday at Levi's, and the conversation we were just having was about Kyle Shanahan and his relationship with Brock Purdy. And it just feels like he's learned from his mistakes, whether it was Nick Mullen, CJ Beathard, but specifically the Jimmy Garoppolo. There just seemed to be a lot of tension there late in that relationship there. I don't know if it was ever really good to start off with, what have you, but it seems like he has learned from mistakes there, and he has really been picking up his young quarterback whenever he's made mistakes. You don't see him ripping him on the sideline, anything like that. He had a bad pick. Hey, shake it off. There just seems to be a natural relationship there that wasn't there with Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you see the same thing?
I don't know because I'm not inside the building. Jimmy always said, Wednesdays and Thursdays, you think I'm having a good life. Come out to practice on Wednesday and Thursday and see what it's like.
That's true.
Know? So, and I asked Brock that almost the same question the other day, and Brock said, he coached us hard, but he just has a better student. I mean, he's just better than Jimmy. He's better than CJ. He's better than Nick. He's better than these guys that Kyle's had. He processes information faster. He sees the field better. He's more accurate with the ball. He never seems like just mentally, and nothing against Jimmy, but just mentally, remember what it was like when he was in the pocket. And if you got to 3 seconds, you're like, oh man, something good is not going to happen here. Like the feet are getting, like he never gets jumpy like that, ever. I mean, he's just under control. And he always has the answer to the test, no matter what you're trying to do to him defensively.
Baldy, I'm watching this guy and I'm looking at the throws that he's making. I mean, deep bombs down the field. And then I'm looking at all the metrics, and he's top of the charts at everything. He's going to break all these Niner records. Why is this guy not being discussed as a superstar?
It really, Trent Williams touched on it, and everybody now is eventually, is getting to it. But, that label of Mr. Irrelevant, 7th-round pick, that travels. That's part of it. But, as soon as, and Trent just put it perfectly, as soon as, people start doubting, like if he's just a system quarterback and all that, then you're not paying attention, you're not informed, you're not a real student of the game, because then you're just throwing labels out there. And there's no labels that fit him. And so, when you're at the top of the charts, I just watched Tua under pressure last night really struggle. And if Tariq's not on the field, the offense just kind of gets shut down. And you just don't see that. We've seen him play without Debo. He's played, without, certain players out there, and you don't really see a drop, in his performance. So if you're not talking about him as a superstar, then you're just not watching, and you're just not open-minded to what a superstar is in this business, because it's the hardest position to play in football, and he's got a mastery in it right now.
The superstars in any sports, it's the subtleties that everyone appreciates. Like there's subtle things that they do throughout a course of a game, whatever the sport might be, that like the truly trained eye picks up on. What's the subtle thing for you that proves he's just an absolute stud?
All right, so, he's the conductor of this orchestra, right, Joe?
Yeah.
So do you ever see any confusion.
No.
Do you ever see anybody not get lined up properly? Do you ever see they got to burn a timeout because they can't get in the right formation? Well, that all falls on the quarterback. And when I watch this offense, I don't see confusion. I don't see a need to burn a timeout. I don't see guys not getting lined up properly. And there's a lot that goes on. There's a motion to shift every single play. Guys got to get to their spots. But, he's the one that makes basically, if there is a mistake, if the play comes in wrong, if there's a wrong protection, he's got to fix everything at the line. And I think he's just a natural fixer.
Brian Baldinger joining us right here on the Morning Roast. Joe Spadonian for Bonte alongside Joe Shasky. Does it every single week. Brian Baldinger, he was there. He did double duty. He did not only Niners Seahawks, but my guy was out doing the Miami Dolphins and Tennessee Titans. That is not a short flight, people, going from San Francisco all the way to MIA. So we appreciate Baldy joining us here. And Baldy, the offensive line, and I know it's not the sexiest, but this is your bread and butter here. And Trent Williams, you all know, this guy's a future Hall of Famer. He's cemented. What are some of the other players on this line doing that has been impressive for you as you just saw them up close and personal? Because I'm looking at Colton McKivitz. That was the big storyline in the offseason. Oh, my God, this offensive line outside of Trent Williams. I'm nervous, a lot of nervous energy here. But every single week, it doesn't matter. They don't seem to skip a beat if someone's out. If it's Feliciano, if it's Banks, what have you. It's been pretty damn impressive.
Well, Feliciano's filled in at left guard. He's filled in at right guard. You got to be deep in this business. And so, the best thing you could say about Colton McKivitz, and this is going to sound bad, but it's just the truth. We never talk about him during the game. Like, he's not just getting steamrolled. He's not drawing flags. He's not, jumping early. He's just doing his job. And kind of what right tackles really love. Everybody else can celebrate in the end zone, and they can high-five this, this offense that, maybe the best that we've seen in the league since the greatest show on turf. I mean, I'm not trying to, just throw superlatives out there, but I mean, it's really good. And if your right tackle's never talked about, he's probably doing a great job.
I love that. Let's go to the other side of the defensive line, and we'll get into all the playmakers, CMC and Debo and all that. But we crushed Javon Kinlaw for like 2-3 years, and he got bodied in that NFC Championship game, and the videos were circulating everywhere. He's been really good the last couple of weeks, Baldy, and the entire defensive line, it feels like, is galvanized right now. What are you seeing from Javon Kinlaw? Because I do feel like he deserves to get some appreciation this morning.
Well, he's a worker, number one. And so, I think he's locked in, and he's healthy. Now, he's had a ton of injuries, in his first couple of years, and he's missed a lot of time. But he's healthy, and you can tell. He's not getting knocked out of his spot right there. He's anchoring down on double teams. And let's face it, this defensive line is 8 deep. And it has to be, because I just remember talking to Nick last year about, who's the MVP, who's the defensive player of the year and all this kind of stuff. And, I was like, Max Crosby. And he was like, yeah, Max is really good, Baldy, but, he can play every play. I'm trying to play 20 games. He's just trying to get through a 17-game schedule. They're thinking across the board is, we're here to win a Super Bowl. We're not here to make the playoffs. We're here to win it. And so there's a mentality to that where you got to keep the guys fresh. You got to rotate them. Would you like to have Nick Bosa on the field every down? Yeah, heck yeah. He'd put up, monster numbers if he did. But at the same time, it's about winning in January and getting to February.
What are you seeing from this linebacking core right now? Because, you get onto the field, right? And Fred Warner, I'm just watching him. I'm sitting in the end zone the other day, and I'm like, God, I'm watching one of the best to ever play the game, I feel like, watching this guy play. But the way he works in tandem with Greenlaw, and Greenlaw suplexing, Drew Lock as he's scrambling for one. I tell people this. Greenlaw's barely bigger than me in terms of height-wise, and he throws his body around on people. I don't think we appreciate how physically, he could play in any era.
Any era. And, I remember talking to Fred, before the Steeler game to start the season. And, this is their 5th year starting next to each other between Greenlaw and Fred Warner. So there's no other tandem inside linebacker in this league that has that much experience together. So, the communication is just airtight. But, just the speed that they play with, because, I'm sure they could all go run 40-yard dashes, and they put up a good time. Dre's probably faster than Fred. But together, how they play the game, like, I don't know that anybody, I'm sure Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, speed-wise, might be a little faster, but nobody plays the game faster on Sundays than those two. And the recognition and then the angles. And, I mean, if you're looking at defensive players of the year this year, I mean, you have to put Fred Warner in that conversation. You can't have the conversation without Fred. Just because he plays every snap, the interceptions, the splash plays, the sacks, the pressures, and then, oh, by the way, they're the number one defense, out there in the league. So it's a special group.
What about him and DK? What did you think of that? Because a lot of talk about how they knew DK would get riled up, and then in the post game, Fred goes, "I told him he's a great tackler." What was your take on that entire sequence with De'Armond Lenore and DK Metcalf?
Well, look, this is a rivalry. They played 3 times last year, playoff, victory. There's a lot of respect there for what Pete Carroll has done in his career and how they coach the team. But look, DK is an emotional guy. Fred plays much more under control. But those are things that are going to happen in division games. And you're trying to get to where you want to get to, which is the number 1 seed in this league. You're not going to let DK Metcalf and any of his histrionics stop you or slow you down from getting there.
Brian Baldinger joining us here on the Morning Roast. It was one of the funniest things I've seen. It reminded me of being like a kid playing a video game and I'm getting upset and I'm losing. My older brother keeps making fun of me. I throw the controller, just start a fight. It just kind of just threw me back to when I was a kid watching that whole thing happen. Baldy, all right, we've been singing the praises of the Niners all morning, and rightfully so. They're clearly the best team in the NFL right now. When you were watching the team Sunday, though, and you've been watching them all season, you watch every single play. What is one thing about this Niners team that should give us a little pause? Like, what's the one weakness on this team that maybe we should be focused on that other teams could potentially exploit going forward?
I mean, you saw it against Tampa. You saw it last Sunday against Seattle. I mean, you lose Travarius Ward, and all of a sudden the pass defense doesn't look as airtight as it does. You got, Jair Brown back there is playing great football, but he's still a rookie. So, if you get to the depth of your defensive backs and the quarterback has the ability to get the ball out quickly, so let's just say you see the Cowboys in the playoffs and, the way Dak is playing and how quickly they can get rid of the football and how good their offensive line. If you protect the quarterback now, there's places to throw the football. We saw Kirk Cousins do it this year. We saw, Joe Burrow do it. We saw Baker do it at times. We saw, Drew Lock do it at times last. There's openings there that you can throw the ball against this team. And it's not forlorn that the defensive line is just going to get there and get to the quarterback every time you drop back. It's just not going to happen as quick as a lot of teams get rid of the ball. So that would be the one concern. If they get caught up in a shootout and the other team's quarterback is really hot, does it come down to who has the ball last?
What do you make of this offense right now? Like, CMC he's unbelievable. That first play, a little stutter step, the speed, the burst, and then he's timing the block. Brandon Ayuk physically blocking downfield. I mean, their willingness to block and be dynamic playmakers. Kittle, Debo, Ayuk. Everybody keeps bringing up the greatest show on turf. For your money, where does this offense rank in the last 20 years? Like, in terms of personnel?
Well, I was told when I got into this end of the business that we're in the entertainment business, Joe. And we are. And we all want to be entertained. You're in the stadium on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Like, it is the most entertaining offense. And that's what the greatest show on turf was. It was Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, and Orlando Pace at left tackle. There's similarities, to the receiving core that they had and all of that. And for my money right now, it's just the most entertaining offense in football, in large part because it's just so exciting to watch. And you don't know which of the names that you just mentioned are going to break out. I mean, I was in the end zone the other day, and here comes Kittle off the field after his warm-up, and he came running at me like he was going to knock me down, and he jumped up, and he grabbed the goalpost with both hands. Like, he just exploded right in front of me. And I'm like, he can jump out of the gym. Debo can run through you. Ayuk can juke you. I mean, it's just, and McCaffrey is just, don't try to talk to that guy in pregame warmup. That guy's just locked in, period. And there's time to socialize, and there's time to talk, and there's time to have some fun. But don't interfere with that guy's pregame warmup. This team is locked in right now. To answer your question, Joe, I just think it's the most entertaining offense that we've seen in a long, long time. And we need that. We need a standard of what teams want to be and become. And it's a credit to John Lynch and to Kyle and what they've assembled.
And I'm just looking around the league, and Brian Baldinger here with us. To your point, Baldy, they're playing on such a level right now on offense. I'm trying to see who around the league can even keep up with them. And then on the defensive side, obviously, Fred Warner setting the tone, Nick Bosa, all those guys. Who's a threat to this team right now in the NFC? Is it the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, it's the team that you wiped up early in the season. It's the Cowboys. I mean, just because, it's never, look, the head-to-head competition happens, but everybody's team changes throughout the season because of injuries. You find out what you do well. The Cowboys have figured things out. And right now, they still have some tough games left, but that'd be the one team that can, because of the speed on defense, because of the way Dak is playing, Dak's movement right now, they've got a legitimate big-time tight end. Maybe he wasn't quite that early in the season. They had major red zone woes early in the year. They've kind of fixed those. They execute much better in that part of the field. The field goal kicker is money from 60 on in. He hasn't missed one. It's just a phenomenal story. The guy never kicked in college. He's a soccer player, and here he is, 30 for 30. The Cowboys would be the one team right now that, you have to be looking at in your rearview mirror.
All right, Baldy. So let's say you're talking to a defensive coordinator on one of these potential teams. Like, what's the thing they're trying to take away? When I listen to Belichick talk, he's like, I got to take away X. It's either Tyreek or Kelsey when they would face the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, they're going to try to take something away. If you were talking with defensive coordinators, what's the thing that you would try to take away to slow down the Niners if you could?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would just go up on a whiteboard and I draw up their 5 run plays that they repeat over and over and over again. And I'm like, we have to defeat these 5 plays. Because if it's 2nd and 9, Kyle might be a little reticent to running it on 2nd and 9. Let's get them into throwing situations. And then we can figure out our zone pressures, our blitzes, how we're going to affect the quarterback. But I literally would write up those 5 plays. I'd draw them up. I'd walk through them. I'd show them to my team. And I would this is how you defeat these plays. Because they can be defeated. You got to defeat the blocks. But, when Kittle comes in motion, he's kicking out the force on the outside, and here comes Trent. Like, all right, penetration, downhill. Like, let's blow this up at the point of attack where McCaffrey can't cut back and go for 72. That's where I would start, Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the run game because, like, I'm sitting there, I got, like, the all-22 view from the end zone, and, it's just you see things open up. And, like, when I watched Frank Gore was so patient, and he understood how to set blocks up and then how to kind of knife through holes. But he didn't have the explosion that McCaffrey has. And he didn't have that toughness to break through a tackle. Not that he was tough. I don't know, I sound like I'm diminishing Frank. Frank's one of my favorite players ever. But CMC's just on a whole nother level. In terms of the scheme, the one-cut thing, the zone blocking, fitting what he can do and his vision, it feels like he was the ultimate running back for this particular offense.
I think so. I think he's because you could get a big guy like Derrick Henry, he wouldn't be the same guy in this offense. And but Raheem Mostert was really good in this, but he's not quite the same dynamic player that McCaffrey is, and I don't know that he's the same receiver that McCaffrey is, and all the things that they're doing in motions now, and putting him out in formations that we've never really seen before, and what they're doing with him. So the package keeps expanding, but I feel like between the tackles right now, McCaffrey very well could be the best running back in this league, and maybe the best we've seen in a long time.
Wow, it's pretty incredible.
Wow.
I mean, think about it. Going back to college, Baldy, it was Derrick Henry and it was Christian McCaffrey, right? 1-2 in the Heisman. A lot of us here on the West Coast thought it was East Coast bias. McCaffrey clearly had the better season. Probably should have been the MVP. Just look at all the Heisman, I should say. Should have had all of that. It had the accolades, all that. And for them to come into the NFL and dominate the way they have, it's pretty incredible. It doesn't happen like that. Like the 2 best running backs from college dominating the NFL, they're both, Christian McCaffrey health-wise, but Derrick Henry, he's a lock for the Hall of Fame, and I think McCaffrey is too if he keeps this up. It's pretty incredible.
Well, and not only that, but they're the number 1 and number 2 running backs in the league right now. Maybe Mostert jumped up last night. I haven't looked at the final stats. But, I mean, they're 1, 2, and 3 right now in this league. And so, it's a credit to – because, obviously this offseason was about, do we value running backs the way we should? Well, when you have a great one, you value them and you pay them. And it doesn't happen very often, and it's going to happen less and less. But when you get a great one, and he's the one piece to your offense that you desperately need, because Mostert is that guy in Miami, and Christian is that guy right now, in San Francisco, and so is Derek. He had 100 yards last year. Last week, he had 2 more touchdown runs yesterday. They still lean on him really heavily.
Absolutely. Real quick, Baldy, the jobs that Steve Wilkes has done since coming down on the field, and I know you were like me, you're like Shasky's like, I don't know if that coming from the booth down to the field had that much of an impact, but clearly since the addition of Chase Young and after the bye week, there's just something different about this defense. Can you talk about the job he's done since the bye week?
Well, he put Lenore in the slot, and that really fixed that position. That was a big move. Now, they had to take him back out of the slot last week when Travarius got hurt. But I think, just their ability to mix up, strong man coverage like they did against Philadelphia at times. Because, some of these games have been closer than others. And so you want to be able to pressure, mix your pressures in. Obviously, the play at the end of the first half against Minnesota kind of stuck in the craw of a lot of people, including maybe the head coach. But we haven't seen anything like that. But we've seen, more pressures, I think, at good times from this defense, and then they've held up on the back end. And now you're playing a rookie safety back there. And look, I love Tig, and I think he's going to be a great player, but you're still a rookie back there, and you haven't seen the breakdowns on the back end. And sometimes you get that with young and rookie players.
With Shohei Ohtani making $700 million, I'm sure you were aware of that, right, Baldy? You heard about that, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's the thing Brian Baldinger would buy when he got $700 million? Well, look, he's looking out the window. What would you get?
I'm looking
yourself?
out at the port of Miami right now, Joe. And, I would get a boat. Like, I don't need, a Jeff Bezos yacht, with my $700 million, but I would like a nice boat. It's just, I feel like I could take that thing right out here, right out the canal, the channel here, out to the ocean. You want to drop a line and do some fishing. You want to jump in and do some diving off one of the reefs. Like, I'd like to have that kind of access.
All right, so now you're allowed to invite anyone onto your newly minted boat that you just purchased. Who's that person you're inviting?
Well, it's going to be a female.
I love you.
So I need some beauty on the boat too now.
I love you.
I love that was the greatest.
Where are you
that was
be
the
at this
greatest
week?
answer I've ever heard in my life.
Where are you working this week? What game you got?
I'm following Will Levis around. I'm going to Tennessee. I'm going to Nashville. I'm going to see if he can back that up. What we saw on Monday night. Got a good game there between C.J. Stroud and Will Levis. 2 rookie quarterbacks. I tell every one of these guys, I've not met C.J. Stroud, but I met Will Levis last night, Joe. And I went up to him. First of all, the kid's a block of granite, like physically, and he could take some punishment. But I just want to let these guys know that we need great young quarterbacks in this league. The league is built on it. Welcome to the NFL. You guys represent really well right now. You'll be in Baldy's breakdowns forever. Like, that's just a side thing. But I just want to let them know that how much we appreciate great quarterback play and great young quarterbacks in this league, because without them, we struggle as a league.
Baldy, speaking of appreciation, we appreciate you.
You're the best.
You coming in the studio last week was freaking awesome. We appreciate you and all your coverage every single week here, man. Go enjoy Miami.
Okay. All right. I might sneak out here for a little bit, guys.
There you go.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one. Be safe,
Baldy.
bud.